interest of time, we will call the meeting to order. We're just a couple minutes after 7:03, so we will call the Economic Development Commission of Woodbridge meeting to order at 7:03. We welcome our guests today. This is a very exciting meeting because we do have about half our agenda. We'll be hearing from various folks. But the first thing we have, and this has been done strategically, is to talk about our business resource guide, so we can sort of update our guest businesses that are here as to what we're doing to help ease the process of starting a business in town. So I will let Sadie open the discussion from CERC, and then we'll chat about the guide a little bit.
Sure. So basically we put this together to help new businesses coming to town through the land use regulatory process, help them get access and kind of get an understanding of the resources available to them. So what we put together is a very rough draft, as you can see. We'd like to start it off with kind of a welcome letter from the first selectman, and then we have a breakdown of the land use regulatory process, depending on kind of what a business is looking to do when they come here, if they're looking to build, if they're purchasing a building, and if they're leasing within a building. So those are kind of the three breakdowns of what your process is. There's also information on kind of state requirements and information on state resources to help businesses. So again, this is really rough, and we're going to add a lot more detail to it once I kind of get some feedback from the town, but they have it in their hands now, so we're kind of working through it with them. And just, if you all have any thoughts on it, something else that could be added that could be helpful, just, let me know, and I'd be happy to work on that.
I have a quick question on businesses moving into a new space for a building lease.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a new business in town or to a new?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a new business necessarily, just any business that's moving into a new space.
I've never heard of an application meeting with the first selectman, so that's why I'm asking.
Right, so that's something that we want to get started as so that a business comes into town and this is the first stop for them always, and that way the first selectman, they can provide them with the information that they might need and kind of help them through the process, just so that they know they have that immediate contact.
I think we've heard from businesses before of the challenges of when they start at one department, and that's what I think we're trying to avoid. What I'd like to see is more website links rather than just phone numbers in here. I think that I met with folks from SBA earlier in the week, and they have some very good resources, as does the state. This is the SBA Small Business Guide. I got one for each of the members here, and I'll share it with our guests here. The SBA Small Business Guide is a very useful guide, and I think we want to make it as easy as possible to start a business. I get a little overwhelmed when I see step 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 12 steps. I wonder if there's a way that we can do it that doesn't make it seem as onerous, but just bullet points, follow these in order, something, just to make it not seem so overwhelming. And again, keep it as positive, uplifting. This guide here starts with success stories from across the country, perhaps as part of the message from the first selectman's office that we talk about, potentially some successes, the quality of the businesses, the number of businesses, the diversity of the businesses that we have in our community, things like that really keep it positive and upbeat, because we've heard from many businesses before, both anecdotally and here at the meeting, where there was a lot of challenges. And I want to go as far as to say that we should have these guides in the zoning office, because I think commonly people just go there, and we need to help clarify that. The state also has a brand new Doing Business in Connecticut guide for this year. I think we should get copies of those. Not only have them down in the zoning office, but have them right here at the front desk, so when somebody comes in and Tony can hand them something, direct them to the first selectman's office and have these pieces, because there's some great resources that are out there, and I think we have to get as much of the stuff out there as possible.
I also think maybe they should be like worded as suggestions as opposed to actual steps that you have to take, only because, let's say there's an office space for lease at any of these offices here. If an office user comes into town, there's no regulatory process, there's no application, there's no land use, there's no zoning, there's no any of those things. So they may want to go meet with the first selectman and figure out how to get their name out and how to be, welcome themselves into town and that kind of thing. But as far as an application process, it just may seem like you're going through a lot of red tape when you don't have to.
Exactly, that's what we don't want to do. Yeah, you're renting a building and you're like, oh my gosh, I got 7 steps and I have to go see the zoning enforcement officer, the site plan, and
Right, that's
you
what,
know.
that was my question, because I've never heard of that process, and that's, I've had businesses in town for a number of years, and
It's just going to scare you off, and you're already here.
well, I'm already here, so it's just a curiosity, that's why I asked.
I think suggestions are good too, sort of like in a Q&A sort of form. Like if I'm moving into town and I'm looking to change the use of a current zoning, or my use doesn't fit into the current zone, who do I talk to kind of thing, as opposed to saying you
You
gotta go
could
through
do,
X, Y, and Z.
frequently asked questions section.
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah,
Sure.
suggestions and
Same thing in the lease. I mean, call the fire chief and then the fire marshal. I mean, again, those seem to be a little overwhelming. Step 3 and 4 can be combined to be, notify the folks at the fire department or something. Again, I think people might be overwhelmed that they have to go to the fire chief and then the fire marshal, where all you have to do is, call the office over there, potentially to, notify them. But I don't even, again, Jeremy, I don't know if that's something that you're.
well, no, because I mean, if you're a tenant in the building, so for instance, the building that we're in, the fire chief comes in and the owners take them into all the different suites where they go. You wouldn't have to call the office tenant unless they own the building. So in those cases, they would go through the landlord would walk them through to test all the devices.
Yeah, the tenant doesn't need to worry about that stuff.
Right. Unless there's a use issue,
Right.
If it was previously a photography studio on the first floor and a restaurant wants to go in there and they have to put in, hoods and all that kind of stuff, then of course you gotta go through that process.
We'll work on simplifying.
And that's a good point. I don't see the restaurant aspect to it here, because that's a whole nother process, but maybe that could be an addendum.
Right,
or-
there are certain types of businesses that require certain special regulations, which is why we also wanted to include the pre-application meeting with the first selectman's office, so that they can kind of vet that,
Yeah.
so.
And make sure that the first selectman's office is, again, up to speed with
Right.
all these resources. The other one that I want to make sure that we have here, and I'm going to suggest that we invite to an upcoming meeting, is the folks from SCORE. Because again, I think there's a phenomenal resource there that should be on here. We should invite SCORE to a meeting here. We have a local office out of Gateway, I believe, that covers this area. And again, to give even our existing businesses a resource. Hey, Brooks. To know where to go, how to get resources, and the fact that it's, free consulting advice from the folks over there.
Who's scores now? Do you know?
I don't. I
I
just
think
don't.
they don't go by it anymore, but they used to be the Service Corps of Retired Executives, something like that.
That sounds pretty good. There you go. But that's what it is, basically retired executives that are going to provide the resources, whether it's a retired accountant, retired marketing person, so they have those specialties. So you can call them up and say, I need some marketing help, and that's what they're there for. Brooks, we're just going over the first item, which is the business resource guide. There's a draft available, and so we're just critiquing that draft from our perspective, the things that we think should be in there. Any other comments from the commission on this? So what more do you need from us, Sadie? Anything else at this point?
Right now, we're really waiting on the town's input in terms of what their process is. This is something that we kind of put together just based on what other towns do, so we're waiting to get feedback from them. But, for the next, well, I don't know about the next meeting, but the next time we're all in this room together, we'll have a more finalized version.
So you'll take our thoughts from
Yes.
tonight and be able to
Mhm.
incorporate
No, it's a
that.
good job. I mean, this is as far as we've gotten on this process, and many years I've been on this commission. So.
We got something.
Yeah.
So it's a great segue into why I asked Katie to join us here. Katie's exploring potentially opening a business here in town, has gone through some of these challenges that we've just talked about. So I encouraged her to come. She's come across some roadblocks, as many startups do, but I welcome Katie to come.
Thanks.
Tell us a little bit about what your potential venture is, about some of the process that you've gone through to get to where you are today with the town, and potentially if you continue to move forward, if there's things that we can do to help you.
Sure. Do I have to state my name and address? Or is it-
Just your name, your business. That you're
Okay,
looking to
so
explore.
I'm Kodi McGonigal, and the business that's registered with the state is called Blast CT LLC, and it is a Nerf arena, and it is like paintball / laser tag, but it's using all Nerf products, Nerf blasters, and so we have been negotiating for a space on Selden Avenue, which is also Amity Road. It's a perfect space because it's like a warehouse with an office space upstairs that we use for parties. And I am currently the librarian at the middle school in Bethany. My husband is a music teacher and an artist, so we've had no experience whatsoever with opening a business, but we thought this idea is unique in that there's no other Nerf businesses in the state. And so I took money from my retirement and decided we were going to make it go. That being said, we really didn't know what we were doing, so we were relying on the internet as well as our real estate agent, who's also not normally a commercial real estate agent as well. So we kind of were going through the process, and I think my partner, who's also never opened a business before, asked the question about sprinkler systems in the space, which led us to call the fire marshal, which kind of led to this snowball effect of the fire marshal, then the town found out, and then we got pushback from the zoning, I don't want to say zoning department, it was the zoning appeals department, in that they told us that there would be a zone change needed, but that they canceled their June meeting, so we'd have to wait for July. And at the time, we were set to sign a lease starting June 1st, so kind of had a little bit of a panic. I know someone personally on the zoning board, not the appeals board, but the zoning board, and I called him in a panic and asked him what I should do, and he just said, send over a narrative in a way of what you're looking to do. Because the previous tenant was a CrossFit, and didn't seem in my, again, naive mind that there would be much of a zoning difference between a CrossFit and a Nerf place. So when I submitted the narrative, I was told, I just want to get the language right because it was kind of, I chuckled a little bit, because it says that the commission has a policy of not discussing items that are submitted less than 10 days before a meeting. Under state statute, applications can be submitted up to the closing date, up to the close of business tomorrow for receipt at the meeting. But given the commission's policy, I cannot assure you that the commission will do anything. So it's kind of confusing because we seem to be within the state statute to get approval, but not in the commission. So I went to the meeting and just hoped that somebody would mention us, and they did. And the commission, now this was not of the zoning appeals, but rather just the zoning board, discussed it for all of maybe 45 seconds, and somebody threw out, sounds like CrossFit's more dangerous than Nerf, and they said, it's no problem, there's no zoning issues. So it took a big sigh of relief, but it was quite an eye-opener, because like you were saying, I didn't know that was the steps that I needed to take in order to open a business in general.
I think the reason that we wanted to talk about this was you were first sent to appeals, which didn't seem to make much sense, where you should have gone to zoning first. And that's what we're trying to
Right.
alleviate with having some more clear guidelines for startups like yourself.
Right, and zoning had canceled their meeting, but the commission, the actual zoning commission didn't, so it was kind of, it was nice that that we were able to get in on the one meeting that was available. I could say that I did attend a free workshop. They do free workshops the first Wednesday of the month at Gateway through SCORE, and they're tremendously helpful, and the amount of stuff I walked away with was huge. And they set you up with a mentor that's close enough to what you're trying to do, so you can ask questions about anything from accounting to marketing and etc. So I do think that SCORE is a great resource.
Great. So hopefully, a guide like we're trying to put together is something that when you come to town hall that, again, if the process went smoother, you'd have the guide, you'd go to the first selectman's office, they would help direct you, and you'd also have a point of contact in the first selectman's office. So if you had any questions or concerns, hopefully we would be able to clarify that through town hall and not have you go to appeals before you've actually gone to the commission, because that doesn't make sense. You go to the commission first, and then if there's an issue, then it's an appeals related issue.
I think that what you guys have going with the suggested list of what steps to take would be very helpful, for sure.
Great. Does anybody else have any questions for Kate?
Good luck with the business. I know people at my office, and I don't know if this is just the culture or what, but we would have Nerf battles in the office on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So to go to a place you can actually do that without worrying about, tearing things apart in our office would be much easier. So.
Or mowing over the darts in the lawn.
Or finding them, in the fish tank and all
Oh,
that.
absolutely. Yeah, it appears as though the deal on Selden is actually falling apart, so we would, trying to keep a very tight radius. Like I said, I do work at the middle school, and I have a lot of connections in town. I made connections with Jack Nork at the Amity Teen Center, and so we're trying to keep a tight radius, looking for a lease to be able to continue with this, hopefully, good idea.
Have you
But
thought of corporate stuff, to your own point?
the what?
Corporate
Like corporate
opportunities?
opportunities, like, corporate events.
Oh, yeah, well, because we thought about it, maybe bringing it mobile to like the Woodbridge Pool Club, doing an event like that, which would be probably doable, because there are a lot of, you could get like blow up modules, kind of again like that pinball theory.
Right.
But yes, in the business plan that we have, team building, corporate building, I have a connection over at Yale as well, so the team building aspect of it, would be huge, besides the birthday parties. And I made a connection with Rob at Nevco, and so again, we're trying to keep the radius tight, but we'll see.
What's your ceiling height requirement for the business?
I mean, I would say anything above 10 feet would be fine. Yeah. We looked at a space behind Holly Shoes. It was kind of like a basement level, but it wasn't really a basement, and it wasn't high ceilings, but it was high enough that it wouldn't impede play. Because you don't want to feel like you're in a small space, but yeah. So, and we're hopefully going to try this on and see how it goes, and then we could grow from there, and then we'll go into Milford and points east. So, well, thank you very much for inviting me to talk.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Thank you.
And also down in that area, we have Lisa and Kodi. We have a consulting firm in the Connecticut United African Congress, and they have a regional training center. So Katie, if you want to just stay to hear about them real quick, because we coordinated this so you can hear from these folks, because they're potential neighbors of yours, and so they have a regional training center. They do some consulting. They've opened up a new organization. So if you guys want to come up, we can put bring up a second chair there. And
Maybe I just want to take a minute, then I let Lisa.
Okay.
My name is Charles Kodi. I'm an engineer by profession, but I'm here as the Vice President of United African Congress, Connecticut Chapter. Our main organization is started in New York, so the mother organization is in New York, but our branch is in Connecticut. We do have an office in Woodbridge, and that is why we are here, because we have become a part of this community. Our aim is to empower the community that live around us. Most of our membership is within the New Haven County area. The back of them is New Haven area. But the main goal is to empower our members and the community we live with economically. And although we are non-for-profit, we know that we need resources to meet our objectives. And that is why we partner with Belconsulting. And so now I leave it for Lisa.
And can you just tell us real quick where you're located?
We are located on 30 Terrace Avenue. Terrace
Hazel.
Hazel.
30 Hazel Terrace.
Hazel Terrace, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Unit 23 and 23 and 22. Yeah, thank you.
You can
So
say.
I see.
At least you can tell us about your consulting firm and your partnership with the organization.
Absolutely. I am a business consultant and have been for about 25 years in Connecticut. I've been a Connecticut resident for 8 years. And in terms of the services that I provide in assisting Connecticut United African Congress, business plan development, website design, strategic planning, proposal writing. So there's a vast amount of services that I have provided to CTUAC as well as training. So the regional training setup is a smart room setup. It's 40 seats. It's available to smart organizations that want to come in and use the technology. And if not, there's a 40-seat space that could be used for meetings, board meetings, trainings.
And this is at that same
Yep.
30 Hazel Terrace.
Yes. So if for organizations that want to do, I'm certified team building instructor, leadership instructor, so over 150 titles, so customized training is available in that space, that we would like to partner with the town to identify small businesses that would like to use the space, either use the space or identify training needs and then use the space to execute those needs.
And if somebody wants to do that, is there a website they go to get the information from you or from Charles?
Yes, so everything is just, the partnership is forming, so the site pretty much gives the nonprofit overview, but there's going to be an added tab for the regional training
And
community.
the website is?
CT
United African
Congress.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it would all go through the CT United
All
African-
go through
yeah.
the Woodbridge
Yeah.
site, but I'm an enabler in terms of providing either the training
Yeah.
or the resource or the consultation for small businesses or the municipality as
And
a
so
whole.
one of the, and you're fairly new in Woodbridge with your facility
Yes.
here. So one of the questions we always like to ask and learn to help educate us is why you chose to come to Woodbridge.
Well, just as I said, that we do have, most of our membership are within New Haven area,
Mhm.
and some are within Woodbridge area. And so we were looking for, a venue that could suit even those who are coming from Waterbury area.
Mhm.
They can easily get a place, and also accessibility. And because we are a non-for-profit, we were looking for fairly affordable venue, and that is how we came to get Woodbridge. Yeah.
Great, well, we definitely welcome you here. So convenience, location, how about parking? Is parking okay up there?
Yes. Yes. We have ample parking.
Okay, great.
And it's very easily accessible, right on Route 63. So
Okay.
yeah. And we were glad to have first selectman. She came over and saw the facility. Both her and the New York mayor came and
City of
opened.
New Haven.
Oh, sorry.
New Haven.
New Haven, the city of New Haven mayor came and opened the facility. So
With
we
the
were very
software.
much glad to
What
have.
kind of technologies do you offer in the meeting space that you said you have?
It's just a smart screen, touch screen, laptop, projection, LCD projection, so for a standard meeting, if you wanted to do instructional meetings, real estate, organizations, any small business that wants to use the technology. So it's just basic smart board, smart technology.
What's the capacity, 40?
40.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And the tables can be, they're small enough, so that if you wanted U-shaped, team building, any sort of
Setup.
layout, we can certainly accommodate.
Can you share just a little bit more about the Connecticut United African Congress, your mission, your
Yes.
goals of the organization?
Yes, Connecticut United African Congress. Basically, when we started it, we were thinking of the community, or mostly when we started, not now. When we started, we were thinking of the community of the African descent. And the reason why is because you come to a new environment, you do not know how to get along, where to go, you need resources, you don't know who to approach. People also come from different places, they come in, they cannot bond into the society. And some of them go astray because they do not know, there is nobody to guide them. So we thought of having an organization that can bring these people together, try to educate them. Some of them also come to United States, the language barrier. Some of them were French, colonized countries. They come in, they do not know English. So our aim was to look at a way of empowering these people, integrate them in the community, and give them skills that are necessary. We can also try to channel them to the right people that can help. For example, somebody has, they want to go to college, they do not even know how to start, where to go. So all this, that was the main aim. But now, because we live in a community, we do not say it is for African descent. We are helping the community that we live around. So we had our first gala dinner, which had all the communities. We had the Americans with us, everybody that belonged to the community. It was a very wonderful event that we had. And we want to continue it that way. So we want to empower the people where we live and wherever we are. Now we are in Woodbridge. We want to engage with the Woodbridge people. They need to get to know that we are here and we see how we can work together to empower and better the community around.
And so there's potential folks that might be interested, they might be entrepreneurs, they might be
Yes.
interested in starting their own business perhaps.
Exactly.
So maybe some of the resources that we talked about here this evening are resources that we can share with you.
Yes.
The other thing to think about is potential job opportunities within your network. Some of those folks might be interested in local job opportunities, and again,
Yes.
that's something that we could potentially partner with.
Yes.
From the folks that are here, and they might have some thoughts and opportunities within their networks, as myself as well.
Right, because some of our members, we have professionals among ourselves. We have those who are in college. We have doctors among ourselves, engineers. So we have all sorts of people. The only thing is we want to bring them together, and those who have skill can also help others acquire skills. Yeah.
And in addition, I would say that because the focus, my background, I'm from Virginia, Maryland, District of Columbia area, and I've been here, like I said, for 8 years, but I have a vast amount of experience with regional initiatives, and so it creates capacity when you broaden the scope, and so the idea is to provide regional job opportunities, so there will be job listings on site. I've already begun to, so if individuals come here and they're looking for work, there'll be also listings from around the region at the Regional Community Training Center.
Yeah. By the way, my president, who happens to be a lady, is a business owner, and she has employed over 160 people as we speak now. So the same facility that she has is based in the same 30 Hazel Terrace
Awesome.
Yeah, she has a home care agency which is very big, has grown very big, and is helping a lot of community members.
Thrilled to have them here in Woodbridge. I would
Yes.
love to get that information so
Yeah.
we can network with them.
Exactly.
But also, since you have a regional organization, I think it's great that you chose to locate that here in Woodbridge. So you could have gone anywhere within the region, but you chose Woodbridge as your home. So I think that's awesome, and we welcome and we thank you for being here in Woodbridge.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments for our guests?
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So we do not have a quorum, so we cannot approve the minutes, but we're going to continue to go on with our discussion items. The first one from CERC is on the construction that has started on Lower Litchfield Turnpike. See?
Yes, sure. So I got in contact with DOT this past week and I got the schedule, which is here in your packet. It's a little odd, but so, and I spoke with the project supervisor, so I'll kind of give you an update on, what's going on there. So in terms of what type of work they're actually doing, they're going to be replacing all the traffic signal equipment, widening the roadway, installing guardrails, milling and paving, utility relocation, sidewalk installation, and they're going to do a small raised island at the Pond Lily Avenue intersection. Additionally, Betsy from the First Selectman's office wanted me to let you all know that she's been meeting with CT Rides to promote carpooling during this time. And she's set up meetings with Yale University and Yale New Haven Hospital to coordinate carpooling for their employees. And she also is going to be reaching out to, or maybe this is something that the EDC can help with, reaching out to local businesses and to see if any of their employees who are coming from out of town would be able to carpool with maybe other businesses on the same street, just kind of making those connections. And she's going to just figure out how we can, best disseminate this information. So I'll be sure to keep you all in the loop on that. The other thing is that possibly, if you are all interested, we could have that supervisor from DOT who I spoke to come and speak at an event. I know we were talking about maybe doing a food truck event outside OPG. We could have him come and speak. He was pretty responsive with me, so I think that he would be willing to do that.
Having the schedule is great. I found the press release from April too that the state put out, and I also found all of the drawings. It's all available. It was not easy to find online with all the details of everything. So if anybody's interested in that, it's all available. I can direct you as to where it goes, where you can go to get it, where it goes really, where all the work is occurring. But there's some really detailed drawings finally online, so we can see exactly what they're doing. For example, the off ramps, how many lanes are going to be, signage issues. I was talking to Betsy about some potential wayfinding opportunities, and they're doing a lot of changing of signage because of the road work. So some really, really interesting information. It does not seem that it's impacted the traffic too much at this point. But in terms of scheduling an event, Sadie, what is the thoughts there? Does the Selectman's office have any ideas, or any other folks from town hall in terms of what to
They
do?
haven't really talked much about it. I think that was definitely kind of an EDC-led event. But yeah, we would be more than happy to work with the town to set that up.
This is a project that's going to go through September of next year, so it's going to be almost a year and a half plus project. So if it's something that we could try to do this summer, I think the people in the corporate park are greatly affected, because we have to get in and out and drive through that. But obviously, folks throughout the entire business district. I know traffic today actually was heavy getting out of there after 5 o'clock. I think the idea of the Friday afternoon thing might be very interesting. if we're already having the food trucks there, the last one I went to, we had over 20 people there, just gathering around that time. So maybe we could, jump on that bandwagon and bring the guy and, let people know as part of the communications that, we're gonna have a representative from the state for an hour, from 12 to 1 while the food truck's there. The only challenge is if there's weather-related issues.
Yeah, and we can certainly kind of coordinate it around, what appears to be the most challenging traffic dates based on the schedule that we have.
Could we
Make sure we do it before then.
Is there any chance we could direct that towards maybe, not that we want people drinking beer at noon, but they open at noon, it's indoors, it's a larger space, maybe, because they get food trucks over there, maybe there could be a coordination with, with NEB and go to, it's an indoor space that sort of houses, and now they have that outdoor patio, I mean, you can do it sort of either or, and maybe it would bring people there, it would be, I don't know, they have parking.
Yep, we don't
And
have
at
lunch.
lunchtime, there's not like a lot going on.
I don't know if
Unfortunately.
do they usually have a food truck at lunch there?
I don't know, but if it's
Yeah,
something that
I
they
can
know
look
we're
into
gonna,
it.
if there's people there.
That would be great, because then it gives us an opportunity to go over there. I had a business meeting at a brewery up in Barkhamsted earlier this week, so it's definitely becoming more of a trend.
Yeah, and it's just gonna be hard to hear someone outside, if they're gonna be doing any sort of a presentation. There's a lot of people.
Is that something that we could do this summer then, you think?
I think so. It's not too much coordination because, the food trucks are already there. It's pretty much just reaching out to people and gathering them. So, yeah, I think definitely we'll work on that.
So would the food truck go to NEB instead? Is that the option you're considering? Just to clarify?
No, they're already there.
They're already at the corporate.
No, but they're already,
They bring a training
saying
over as well.
over at
Okay.
NEB, they have them, there was one there today, late this afternoon at least, I
This
saw
will
at
give you
5
back on
o'clock.
all
Maybe they'll come in earlier and
Yeah.
they can do something, on the early side.
Coincidentally, I just connected the OPG and the NEB folks today, so, around this issue, so. So you can work with Town Hall, and we can try to coordinate
Sure.
something, make it happen this summer.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem that there would be any requirement for funding, it's just more of a logistical thing, if we get the First Selectman's office, get some folks in EDC and get NEB, that schedule coordinating, then getting the message out there, we can certainly use the town starting to send the emails out again, which is great. OPG has an email list that they're using for our neighborhood at least that they've put together, and through those of us here, we'll get the word out, and we should be able to have a good group of people. So the discussion on bus route business sponsorship.
So, I couldn't remember why, but at the last meeting, Jody had asked me to put a discussion on the bus route on the agenda. I'm not sure exactly what she wanted to talk about, but I spoke with Sheila and she mentioned that, in Woodbridge, there aren't any really bus shelters, signage, benches at any of the bus stops. And maybe as part of kind of the business visitations we're going to be doing and making an appeal for sponsorships from businesses, that maybe we could ask them if they would be willing to sponsor, benches or shelters or some signage for the bus routes if they have a lot of employees who use the buses, or, if their customers use the buses, or, whatever, if they're interested. And I just thought I would run it by you all.
I think that we should continue to put on the future thoughts. I wouldn't want to take away from the wayfinding right now, though, because the wayfinding, I think, we already have a plan in place for that. And so the wayfinding, the signs are already drafted. That's going to need sponsorship opportunities. The bus, we don't have a plan in place yet. So I think if we can focus on the wayfinding and sponsorships, and then, work at the same time, see if we can start putting a plan together on the bus side of things, then that can be sort of a phase 2 thing. Any other questions on that? Just so you know, Sadie, we did this study, I don't know if you were aware.
I saw the
Okay.
study, yes.
So, we did research that, trying to extend the bus route, but there is an active bus route that's already in place,
Right.
certainly, and you do see people walking all the time, and it would be nice to have better opportunities for those folks there. If there's no other discussion on bus route, the update on the Farmers Forum, we have the Farmers Guide, and we do have some folks from the farming community here. Jim Urbano is here, so what is your thought, Sadie? Do we want to hear from Jim first?
Sure.
We have a couple
Yeah, I
things.
mean, the only thing that I had to say on this was that the ordinance committee will be reviewing the request to create the commission at the end of the month.
And we have a member from the ordinance committee here, right?
We do.
Do you want to say anything first, or do you want to hear from Jim?
I know that there was, when the Farmers Forum, the representatives from the Farmers Forum came in initially, there were some questions as relates to some of the statistics and some of the information that was presented at that point in time. And there was a request made by the EDC to have those folks come back in and have some additional discussions on that. Since then, there's been a number of meetings, and this has been presented as an item on the agenda for ordinance consideration, which is required in order for any commission to be initiated. To that end, the ordinance committee is interested in getting the input from the EDC and as well as from the Conservation Commission and any other entities or individuals as relates to this particular item, as relates to the formation and the institution of a agricultural commission as an official commission in Woodbridge.
And I know last time we talked, I said I'm concerned that when we have the June meeting, we're not going to have a quorum and we can't take an official action because your timing was going to be sometime later in June.
Mm-hmm.
As we discussed, we do not have a quorum, which doesn't mean we can't discuss it, we just cannot take a formal action this evening.
Nor does it's important to understand for everyone, nor does the ordinance committee meeting at the end of June mean that out of that meeting there will be a formation of a commission. Where obviously initially is to present the information. We haven't had any discussions as relates to our agricultural commission. This meeting at the end of June will be the first meeting where it comes up.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily a done deal as of the end of this month or anything along those lines. But the feeling was that it's important to get some input from the EDC members in the group.
Great, so we will definitely have that discussion this evening. We'll be able to, obviously provide feedback to you, and knowing that this is not a done and over in June, but we will be much more informed if and when this commission needs to make an official or take an official action. We will have already had 2 meetings with the farming community. So Jim, you want to come up and
Paul DeCoster.
and Paul, if you guys want to come, you can both sit at the table. I know Jim's provided us some information here as well. Some of it.
My name is Paul DeCoster, 464 Kennedy Road. I am a member of the ad hoc committee that has been discussing the possibility of an agriculture commission for the town of Woodbridge for several months. And the Board of Selectmen has now decided to have the ordinance commission take a look at this ordinance to see whether it's worthwhile enacting. Jim has asked me to go over certain specific items that Mr. Cardozo has mentioned. One of them is the economic viability of farming in Woodbridge.
Okay, just so we don't totally put Mika on the spot, we did feed him some of this information too, so it did come out of the discussion here at our meeting. Brooks, I had some great questions and stuff.
Okay, so what I have done is to go to the Massaro farm, which is a farm that I worked on, and Jim worked on the organization of, and asked them for information because that is one place where we know what has happened over the last 7 or 8 or 9 years. And I've been given this information by Steve Monroe, the farm manager, and by Katie Poole, who's the executive director of the Mazzaro Community Farm. And Katie has laid out for me in no uncertain terms, certain conditions, which we have to discuss when we lay out this information for you. One of them is that the Massaro Community Farm is a non-profit organization. I don't know that that makes that much difference in terms of how much food you can produce, but it is. But one thing it does mention, point out, and that is that additional funds for the farm have been raised by means of the sale of produce. In other words, we get benefit, we get grants, etc. And so there is a capital raising requirement there that you have to mention. Second, the Massaro Community Farm is she says, a diverse vegetable operation. It produces 40 to 50 types of crops, and its operation can vary greatly from other types of farming operations, such as cattle, certain specialty crops, or grow crops, such as corn, etc. And third, the yields per acre vary depending upon the crop, the size, location of the farm, and of course, as you will see, to some extent on the weather. Next, she says there is an intrinsic value to be considered in the value of farming aside from economic. In other words, the preservation of open space, etc. And farming, she says, on its own is a tenuous business, and most farms have additional off-farm income, and that is certainly true of the Massaro Farm. Steve Morrow is a full-time worker there, but his wife is also works in other areas, and that is partly what supports the family. Having said that, I have a list of figures for production from the farm, which has gone to the food banks. In other words, the 10% of the production is supposed to go to the food banks. That's one of the reasons that we're a nonprofit organization. And I have that number and the value of that production. And I think the values here are probably pretty accurate, because not only do they give money to the food funds, production of the food banks, they also sell it to restaurants, to farmers market, in the farmers market, and so forth. So when they started out in 2010, the first year of operation, they produced in approximately 4 acres of land 4,762 pounds of produce for a value of $14,472. That was 23% of their total harvest. So the total harvest is something like 20,000 pounds in 5 acres, about 4,000 pounds an acre. And I think you can figure, since this is organic produce, that the value of that produce is probably around $2.50 to $3 an acre. So I would say that in 2010, they produced approximately $50,000 to $60,000 worth of produce. Going on, at a time when they started to expand their operation, and they went to 7 or 8 acres, and also using high tunnels, so that they expanded the production year. In the 5th year of operation, 2014, they produced 7,052 pounds with a value of $21,133. That was given to the food banks. That represented 12.23% of their harvest. And so Kodi is estimating that that year they had total production of 57,661 pounds, and that would be approximately $150,000. In 2017, the most recent year, they gave 10,065 pounds, or over 5 tons, of food to the food banks with a value of $30,220, or about $3 an acre. That represented 13% of their harvest, and so she's estimating the total harvest at 77,425 pounds, and using a number of $3 an acre, you're talking about somewhere near $200,000 of production, and that would be on approximately 10 acres of land. Maybe a little more than that, because they continue to expand every year, growing more stuff. Now, the total size of the farm, in terms of its productive capacity, is approximately 15 acres. They're still in the process of introducing 4 or 5 more acres in the back field, and that will be the extent of their operation. The rest of it, of the acreage at Massaro, is woods. So I don't think they'll be, unless they want to cut down the woods, that's as much as they'll ever do. But you've got a total operation there that, when it's fully in function, it should produce probably 150, I should say. They should be giving away approximately 15,000 pounds and at 10%, you're talking about 150,000 pounds. So you're up well over $200,000. Now, what kind of an operation is it? Well, it's a farm, and there is a full-time farmer, a full-time assistant farmer, and about 6 salaried personnel who work part-time, obviously, when the farm is in operation. The Massaro farm also, of course, has an educational function. It's run by a separate corporation. Actually, the Massaro Community Farm is the educational operation. Massaro CSA is the farming operation. And there is a community-supported agricultural group of approximately somewhere between 150 and 200 people who contribute $500 apiece to the operation. That's where they get their capital to work with. So you have an operation altogether which is probably employing full-time 2 or 3 people and part-time 10 or 12 people. Now we've also been asked to comment on the production at this time in hay, because that is the only other product that is being grown here other than vegetables. And I think the best estimate we have there is that a bale of hay is costing about $7.50 a piece, right? And you get about 100 bales to the acre. So there is one operation here which has about 15 acres of haying, and that operation with 2 cuts is producing about $22,000 a year per acre. So
Could you go back with those numbers again on the
Yes.
hay? Which is 1 bale of hay costs $7.50.
Right.
How many? 100 bales of hay per acre.
Right.
And how many?
So
acres?
7,500, right? Let's see.
100 bales per acre,
100 bales per acre.
Right. And how many acres?
15.
There were 15.
This is just one example.
One operation, yeah. 15 acres. 15
This
acres.
this would be in the center of town, at the Fitzgerald Church.
Okay.
Correct. So so you can see that that hay, while it doesn't produce as much as tomatoes, is still a valuable crop, and it's all certainly saleable. We have one other piece of information for you on this. I wish we had more, and I think one of the things we have to do is to do a further study on this with more of the farmers. For example, we have a vineyard in town which has 11 acres, and I'm sure that production is worth a lot more than hay. We have the farmer who is now farming approximately 25 to 27 acres. Some of it owned by him and some of it leased by him. And I'm sure that operation is also very successful. We don't have exact numbers on that, but we can get them for you. Now, one final thing that we have on economic value. We had a survey done by
Sam Hammer.
Sam Hammer, who was the manager of a CSA operation in is it Brookfield?
Granby.
I'm sorry?
Granby.
Granby, that's right. We wanted to see that. Very nice operation. So Hammer came down and did a survey of the Massaro farm. He said there were approximately 15 acres available for production. And he gave us a list with all the usual caveats of what this might mean. Number one, he said the value of production per acre of a traditionally established CSA in the Northeast is $10,000 to $12,000 an acre. This assumes 20 CSA shares per acre at $500 to $600 a share for a 20-week CSA with a broad array of products. That's approximately what we're getting at Massaro. We have now, I think, probably 10 to 12 acres in full production. We have 175, 200 members, and they produce, and they're paying $500 a share.
$625.
$625 this year? Okay, $625, okay. Then he says the value per acre of a selection of higher value vegetables, assuming a skilled grower, which I think Steve Bono is, with adequate labor and proper equipment, adds value to the property. Assuming mechanization, irrigated field production, which we have at Massaro, the examples of more intensive small-scale mini farming, which would be from a half an acre to an acre, where much greater per acre values can be achieved through crop density, intercropping, and multi-cropping, growing 2 or 4 crops a year. And some of these single product growings are pretty substantial. For example, in field tomatoes, he says they're worth $30,000 to $50,000 an acre.
For what kinds of crops?
Tomatoes.
Field tomatoes. Summer squash, $30,000 to $40,000 an acre. Head lettuce, $20,000 to $30,000 an acre. Eggplant, $30,000 to $40,000 an acre. Potatoes, $15,000 to $20,000 an acre, etc. As you get on a corn, you're talking about $3,000 to $5,000 an acre. So in other words, row crops are nowhere near as valuable as other specialty crops.
And now this is organic produce, or?
I don't know whether his numbers are for organic, but I can tell you this: anything that is non-organic, so-called non-organic, is not going to be worth what organic products is.
So it's
And I can tell you that from looking at what is it today, to do some, actually yesterday, do some shopping at Edge of the Woods, which is where we buy vegetables, and you compare organic produce prices with non-organic product prices, and I can tell you they're at least $1.50 a pound higher, sometimes $2 or $3 a pound higher. So depending on the kind of crops you produce, you can get much higher production dollar-wise out of organic products than you can non-organic. So the bottom line is that economically, while I'm not saying that farmers are getting rich, it is possible to run an operation and make a living there and hire a good number of people to do it. And I think that's what Chris Sorensen is doing, and I think that's what Massaro is doing.
I don't know what we get in taxes from Massaro, if any. Do we get anything in taxes?
No.
Massaro is a town.
It's a town property.
Town property.
Because there's opportunity cost in that land, and an economist would say, if you're trying to think about economically, one of our charges is we have a big problem here in Woodbridge, and that we don't have a very large commercial district.
Correct.
And we have, I don't know if we have the highest, but we have amongst the highest mill rates in Connecticut.
Sure do.
And one of our goals or missions is to find ways to bring more commercial business into Woodbridge to help shoulder the burden,
Right.
and take some of the weight off the shoulders of the homeowners. And if we're not getting the opportunity cost of there's an opportunity cost to, say, turning land over for farming and not taxing it versus maybe building homes on it and
That's
getting.
a zoning thing though, it's already zoned as farmland.
No, I understand,
So
but
if it's zoned as
if-
farmland, we need to continue to keep it as farmland and protect the space.
What I'm trying to say is that my concern about, looking at this list of properties and having an agricultural commission and trying to promote farming as being a big economic benefit, but it's for whom? Because it doesn't change our tax situation or our tax burdens in any way. And we're in 10 years from now, we're still in the same position, that's going to become a crushing burden on us because in many ways, Connecticut is getting older and we're going to have a population. I think New England's estimated to lose about 10% of its population, and Connecticut has one of the oldest populations in the United States. So I'm just trying to think about how we think about the set of choices we have so we don't constrain what choices we have down the road if we had turned this all over to farms and it wasn't.
It's not asking for new land though, that's the thing. This is land that's already zoned.
Correct.
So that's the point. So if it's already zoned as farms, keep it as farms and make them producing. Make them producing.
Right, I understand that, but
That's
if
the
there's
value.
I don't know if zoning can change, if it might be.
So, but our value, our charge as the economic development is to make sure that town, it has a commercial district and all these other great things. But it's also, we came to this town to live in this town for certain reasons. I don't want to have 400 houses in my backyard when I can have a farm and an open space that's producing and being a valuable asset to the community. It's still adding value, it's still employing people, it's still producing for the community for me to buy locally. That's the whole part of this, right? It's more than just having, a farm turned over to have, with minimum zoning, 40 houses.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not trying to argue that we should pave paradise and turn it into a parking lot. But what I'm saying is that people are concerned about the high mill rate. And that in part is a function of past choices to zone things. And, we can paint ourselves into a corner. There's only so much land around that we don't have large tracts of land around.
Well, it's not just farm, it's the town land that's not being taxed. So if the town at some point made a decision to make parcels of farmland out of the golf course or out of other of these open spaces, then you can sell off parcels of acres of land to farmers who then will be producing on that land and paying taxes to the town.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the tax implications are for farmland versus, residential. So I think it's a lesser tax rate, but either
Right.
way, it's still getting some
Right.
economic.
But, I guess it's incumbent on us to try to, develop a, if here's the land that can be used one way or the other way, let's try to model what that would look like if we had houses paying the mill rate we have or had businesses paying the mill rate and, or having a farm. But
But you're changing the core of the town. So we have a commercial district. We're not utilizing that
it's
commercial
not
district.
necessarily a binary choice.
No, but-
It's a spectrum.
It is a spectrum, but if you're asking to make a change, to say, okay, to put the opportunity cost of a 40-acre farm versus 40 individual houses because of minimum zoning, of course there's going to be more economic opportunity with the housing. But that's not why we came to Woodbridge. I mean, the whole point of this is zoned farmlands. They're falling apart, and now we're giving them an opportunity to be revitalized.
I
That's a
hear
huge
your
move
point,
in
and
the
I'm
town.
really just saying, hello, if we aren't careful, we could end up painting ourselves in a corner and have the same problem 10 years from now, and people are very unhappy.
It's important also to bring the discussion around to what the specific agenda item is, and that's as relates to the Agricultural Commission. That was really the main, that was a main item that was brought forth, and along those lines, and to everyone's point, to all the points being made. For example, there is a view that what you use as an example is Massaro Farm, which is a very successful example of what can happen with town-owned land that's put into a farm. That all happened without an agricultural commission. So we have to, I'd like to see the discussion kind of stay at the point where it's as relates, because your point is very well taken, and I think, what I see as the point being made is it's very important to consider the reason we have one of the highest tax mill rates in Connecticut is because of choices that were made 5, 10, 15 years ago, along the lines of zoning and things of that nature.
The question I have then, so if it's around the forming of the commission, is there any ask for money to form this commission?
No.
Okay, is there anything that the town needs to provide aside from a place to have meetings for this commission to make it happen?
No.
So then what's the
I don't know the
drawback?
answer to
Okay,
those
so my
questions
concern
specifically,
is that
so-
we created,
Sir, Mika?
I don't know the answers to those
One at a
questions
time.
specifically. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
In response to your specific question, when you say that obviously there are expenses associated with any of the commissions, because obviously they take place here, they things of that nature. I don't know, there's no funding required, there's no budget item, nor was there for an EDC. There's now a $3,000 or $2,000 budget item that's for the EDC. There are a number of commissions in the town that had no budget at one point in time, but as time went on, developed a budget. And we're
Because
paying
they're adding
taxes.
value. So it's- that's
And
just
we're
like-
paying taxes as a result of that. So it's important that when we say there's no money involved, that we do look at the whole picture, and that's what the ordinance committee is doing, and that's why I'm saying what I'm saying.
And
So,
so
but-
it's a very good debate, and it's the debate that goes on throughout town. But what we want to do is, if we can, just focus on our guests that we have here and make sure that if we have any questions for them, I do want to respect
Can I
everybody's
address
time.
your concern?
Yeah, you have to raise.
I share with you the concern about taxes and the tax burden and the high taxes in town. I'm heavily invested in the business district, and I believe the district has properties that are underutilized, that can be redeveloped. Just take smart zoning to encourage that to happen. That's not happening now. There are 14 acres on Bradley Road and Litchfield Turnpike that have been placed on the market by the owner because the town didn't support his request to allow, to remove the age restriction. It would have been a range of ages, just as there are in the rest of Woodbridge in housing allowed there. That 150 units would have been added to the tax rolls and would have been an enormous boost to the local economy. So there's much that EDC can do to target developers to that property, to other marginal properties, to encourage redevelopment. That's not being done. I think the farming in town as an industry, as a part of the economy, is a complement to the business district and to the residential districts as well. Quality of life is key.
right,
As Yaron said, we don't want to deal with the traffic nuisances.
So I guess, though, to summarize, though, because this is an important point you hit on, Jim, and it hits on what both of you gentlemen have brought up, is that the value of farming is very important. But that piece that you referred to was a farm before.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, but it's zoned development one.
But it
zoned-
was also in the business district, and there are
Yes.
still other farms in the business district right now, are there not?
There's one,
Okay.
and that may be protected long-term. It's on the inventory
Because
list.
it does raise a good point to what Brooks is talking about too, because we do have farms throughout town, but we do have farms in the business district that could potentially be developed.
True, but it may make a point. There are residents also in the business district who are concerned about traffic load, noise, and would like to see some of that small farm that remains to be a farm. So we have to respect, to a degree, the wishes of those residents and their desires to maintain their quality of life. But in the business district, there's a huge swath that has enormous development potential at the base of West Rock Ridge. That's not farmland. It's an industrial site that can be rezoned, and there could be a village by itself there. There's so many opportunities there to be realized that,
Those are the opportunity costs we should be looking at.
Absolutely,
Not necessarily converting a
absolutely.
farm. to
Absolutely.
Residential.
But let me just give you a statistic, because I don't know if anyone here has experienced this, but because I moved here in 2014. And I used to own a house in Riverside, Connecticut. Riverside is part of Greenwich. And that house costs 3 times more than the house I bought here. Property taxes in Greenwich versus less than the property taxes here. For me, that's like a slap in the face. I just cannot believe that the mill rate is as bad as it is here. Now, I'm not going to pretend that we can even come close to doing anything like what Greenwich has with a commercial district, but it's outrageous. And if we constrain ourselves and say, we're not, the residents don't want business down on Lucy Street, and they want to retain the agricultural feel for things, and then no one else wants to have it in their backyard to have a business there, we're going to be stuck costing 3 times more than a house that costs 3 times more in taxes than the same in taxes or more, rather than houses that cost 3 times more in Greenwich. It's insane.
But instead of rezoning land that's already zoned farmland, why not take what's already zoned?
Exactly.
Ready to be
Ready to be
developed.
there, absolutely.
Yeah,
Need to
So
incentivize
that's definitely-
redevelopment.
yeah, but there's people that say NIMBY, they don't want to have it.
Yeah, but
So
there's also
zoning-
people that say that
But
they
if
don't want to
you go to-
redevelop the farmland too.
Right.
So those same
So
people, I mean.
but if you look at this farm inventory and you look at where it is, it's in residential areas.
So I
Would
think
you rather
what would-
rezone that?
Would be really important to do is, again, we want to keep the focus on our guests that we have here, and I think this is a great debate, and I think Jim has brought up a great point. Jim is very knowledgeable about some of the land in the business district that I don't think we are as privy to understanding the potential, and so perhaps, if the commission agrees, we can bring Jim back and have another discussion on this topic, because I think it's a very important discussion and to identify, excuse me.
I would support that,
Okay, great.
absolutely.
Okay, so I think, why don't we do that? Why don't we think about bringing Jim back if you're willing to, and we can have a bigger discussion about development down there, because that's an important aspect of all this. But to stay focused on the farming part of it, now, again, we're not making any decisions, but we need to take advantage of the
so
gentlemen
which
that are
one-
here and ask them
one more
questions.
part.
What do you guys need from us?
I'm sorry?
What do you need from us as a commissioner? What would you like from us? As
Your
far as
support, your support for that commission. But you're concerned about taxes and the relationship of farming, farm use, and property taxes. This is important. This is a government publication. It's an excellent publication. Fiscal benefits of farms, right? So cost of community services is important. It's a loser. Every time we build a house, the cost to educate the kids in that house is more than, and the cost of services, the cost of town hall, pensions of the people who work in this building, the number of employees, cost of fire, supporting the fire department, the
Right.
police department, is more than the property taxes being paid. It's a loser. That's why our taxes are as astronomical as they are.
Well, this is why we should have businesses in here.
But we have.
Or-
That
but-
don't
but-
have the same demands.
But look at this. What's your name?
Brooks.
Brooks. More than 20 years of cost of community service studies around the country have shown that farmland and other open space generate more public revenue than they require in municipal services. There's a net gain from maintaining those farms. It's a fact. So I don't want to get into all the...
If we look at the inventory here, I think one thing that we have focused on this at the last meeting, which neither you gentlemen were at, where we were asking these questions, going back to the active value, and to follow up on what Brooks is saying. I mean, you look at some of this land, and if we can focus on the economic value of it, there's a lot of property that's dormant in town that is farmland, to your point, that could be potentially of greater economic value to the community.
Yes.
Is there potential, you think, with some of the land where there's hay at $7 per bale versus where we could put something, where there could be greater economic
It could be a
value?
greenhouse producing high-value crops.
Is there potential for that sort of greater economic impact or value from some of this farmland that's not being used today?
Good.
I think that's true. Of course, the question is, in terms of the mill rate, we're talking about how much money is coming to the town, and that would depend upon the assessed value of the property if it's producing more stuff. But you're talking about farms. I don't know whether you're going to increase the assessed value on farms based upon how much they're producing. Right now, most of the farmers are just making a living.
But if their business is more successful, then there's more economic value to
Well,
that.
there's-
Hiring more people, spending more money in the community.
Sure.
I mean, there would be equipment there, there would be, I mean, you mentioned greenhouses, I mean,
Yep.
certainly there's different tax structures,
Yeah.
there's potentially, you know, more taxable value there.
More
I
business
think.
going on, right.
Again, I don't know, that's what I'm asking.
I think there's more, if you activate a lot of these places the way Massaro has been activated, you're gonna get more business. More people are gonna be employed. And of course, from my perspective, what I was in the thing for was not to make a hell of a lot of money, but to see that more people who need the food get food. That's what I'm after. And that, I think, is possible.
And from my perspective, and just looking at it from an ordinance perspective, and the information that is usually gathered and usually evaluated in the ordinance committee, at least since I've been a part of it, is understanding what the value to the town and what the value to the residents of the town is by establishing the commission along those lines. How does a commission specifically add value?
Would add value, Nika, to the farmers, for example. Sarah Shepherd has the Shepherd Farm in an old family farm on Route 69. Mr. Shepherd, the bus driver of my kids, passed away. His son was running the farm there, it's Sarah Shepherd, he passed away. His replacement, sad story, passed away. So she has a farm that's dormant, that's in bad shape, that needs a barn restoration, needs capital. An ag commission can help that farm in distress. An ag commission can be an advocate to the Connecticut Department of Agriculture to get one of the many funding sources available to local farms. We don't have that right now.
And not to interrupt you.
Yes, sir.
What's important from my perspective in terms of information, and this is why the economic piece of it was important, is to understand how the Ag Commission helps Sarah Shepherd and the farm in a situation that sounds very similar to what we have with Massaro Farm, except that it was town-owned property. In other words, they were able to take something that was not
Correct.
what it is now and
Correct.
build it to this point,
Right.
but without an Ag Commission. And I'm
But
not saying we
I was on
don't
the
want it.
Conservation Commission with Paul that did it, so we
Right.
acted as an Ag Commission, but we made that our focus. The Conservation Commission today has a list of responsibilities that by themselves is more than one commission can handle. To expect the Conservation Commission to do what we did then, today, given the increasing numbers of farms we have in town,
That's
we
the important information.
need a dedicated commission that would advocate for these farms. It surprised me when I counted that 22 active farms in town, small to large. You can buy asparagus at a place on Newton Road, specializes in asparagus. You can buy strawberries from Woodbridge Family Farms on Lawrence Street. You can buy heirloom meats from Before and After Farm on Seymour Road. There's a range of maple syrup. An Ag Commission, for example, maple syrup is a big industry in Connecticut. The Regional Water Authority leases taps on its trees. Aside from all the land you saw here on this inventory, there's the opportunity to lease taps for those who would like to produce more maple syrup. That's a commodity that brings money into our town, into the local economy, into the state economy. One more thing an Ag Commission can do. An important thing in bringing money is the Community Investment Act, where a percentage of every real estate sale goes to a fund that goes toward farmland preservation. We learned, Mika, you were there at the Farmers Forum, that an Ag Commission has standing to get that money. 75% of the cost of purchasing of the development rights would be provided by the state of Connecticut if we wanted to preserve a farm in a residential area, prevent it from being developed into a series of homes that would require more in services than they pay in taxes. So an Ag Commission could help bring that money to Woodbridge. The Land Trust partnered with the Connecticut Farmland Trust to do that take advantage of that Department of Agriculture program to bring significant state contribution to the protection of 902 Baldwin Road, which is on our inventory list. 86 acres will be permanently protected. The quality of life in that neighborhood permanently enhanced. property values in that immediate area secure, because being close to a farm like that adds to the value of the homes. So a dedicated agriculture commission that would advocate for farming, for our common interest of the residents, keeping taxes down, maintaining our quality of life, would go far.
Now, from the
Toward those ends.
and it does make sense, but from the economic perspective, again, I think of Silverman's Farm I think that's in Easton. I don't know if everybody's familiar with the Silverman's, or Jones's, for example.
Oh, yeah.
You think about Jones's Farm. Now, Jones's, most of that land is owned by the state, so they own just very little of it, but they farm a lot of that land. But Jones becomes a destination.
That's right.
I mean, people travel from New York to get their trees, they do pumpkin picking, they do their strawberries. Could you envision the Shepherd's Farm? I mean, it looks like total between land they own and town land that they farm, you're talking 60 acres. Is that
more.
a potential to be a Silverman's or a smaller version of
Absolutely.
a Jones's that would take and add value to our community, and that becomes a destination? It helps put Woodbridge on the map as a destination, but
Savino
also,
is doing that already with their tasting room. Savino Vineyards.
but I'm saying scale that up dramatically to a Shepherd,
It may.
60 acres worth.
It may require zoning changes in order to do something like that, because I know, for example, one of the challenges Massaro faces is, and I know they've been before the TP&C in terms of just trying to sell produce at the farm, which you would think is a logical thing to happen, but our zoning doesn't allow that to happen. So similarly, in a situation like what you're describing, we have to make sure that from a zoning perspective, that that's allowable. It would be a wonderful goal, but.
But it used to be a business. I mean,
And
it
that
used
would
to
be
sell
more
milk
reason to have
there.
a commission, so that they can fight on behalf of those farmers that want to get that zoning changed, so they can have a food stand and things like
Well,
that.
the permit for a farm stand is permit's required, as you say, but it's a right granted in zoning. Christina Holland, who bought the farm at the corner of Center and Pease Roads,
Mhm.
just got a farm stand permit recently. That's an example of a young couple moving into town, investing, planning to grow flowers, sell flowers there and other
They're
produce.
selling eggs now.
I'm sorry?
They're selling eggs now.
Yeah.
I get the part that it's bucolic, it increases property values, and, you know, it's not like you have a Walmart, you're not living next door to a Walmart, or to, you know, bad housing with its high density. My concern about an ag commission is simply this. If from a clean sheet of paper, someone thought about, maybe we should think not only about, you know, the way we have always zoned things, maybe some of these parcels that are zoned agricultural, maybe we could change the zoning. And, you know, the way that we can kind of, I have this additional concern, which is that, you know, if we aren't willing to think about taking a look at potential things that are zoned for, like this, that can't be turned into, say, commercial, we'll end up in the exact same place where we are 10 years from now. And farms may produce all these other benefits, but they don't help for the taxes.
So why not focus that energy in getting our commercial district developed, as it should be?
Yes, and why not also look for additional ways to create more
You're trying to
commercials?
jump a hurdle and going into the residential zones, which will raise the cackles of a lot of people, because you're now suggesting spot zoning. So we allow it there, it can be allowed elsewhere in the residential district, it could be zoning anarchy. But if the zoning commission decided to do that, and if the public supported that, then so be it. We're not saying the zoning process is not within the control of an ag commission, it's purely advisory.
But this goes back to actually, should we have an ag commission or not?
Yes.
And, you know, my support is for one, because if it means changing zoning for a particular spot, well, then that's something the Ag Commission can bring up, say, okay, yes, it makes sense financially because of X, Y, Z, that if we put 10 houses here, we'll get the benefit, but let's keep the rest of the farms or whatever. So we have that ability. Right now, we have nobody to advocate for the farms. We have nobody to advocate in terms of, saying that this
We
should
have
stay.
22 farms and
We
we
have
have
the
pretty good
landowners that
success.
own those
Pretty good success with
But
farms.
they're the
through
ones who are asking for it.
Conservation
That's the
Commission.
thing. They're
I don't
asking
wanna
for this additional
press that.
support.
And I don't think so far there's only been support. And there's been some folks who have
We
raised
have
some concerns.
opportunities like with Shepherd Farm on Litchfield Turnpike, where there's, an Ag Commission can go and help Mrs. Shepherd figure out how to get the funds to, revitalize that farm.
Jerry Savino at the Savina Vineyard needs deer fencing. He would like help in preparing an application to the state for help for deer fencing. But there's one more thing. We do have a town plan of conservation and development now, 2015 town plan. So I think it's important to recognize that a lot of effort went into it, that it's supposed to govern our development for the next 10 years. So if I could just cite two quick things in here. If you look at page 87 of our town plan, it's the chapter 5, natural resources. Under the near term, not far long term, near term action agenda, preserve farmland, fertile soils, and local agribusiness. So what we're proposing is completely consistent with an objective of our town plan of conservation and development. And incorporated into the town plan is actually the state's declaration of policy as expressed in Connecticut General Statute 12107, where it is hereby declared that it is in the public interest to encourage the preservation of farmland, forest land, open space, and heritage land in order to maintain a readily available source of food products close to the metropolitan areas of the state, to conserve the state's natural resources, and to provide for the welfare and happiness of the inhabitants of the state. So an Ag Commission would help further that goal.
Right.
That's simple.
And those are a lot of things, but my number one concern is the mill rate, and I don't think any of those things really, in a very hard way,
Well, if you understand that the cost of services is less with farmland than it is with
so then
residential
it
development,
should
you have
be
to
focused
commit-
more on commercial and not residential.
So
housing.
Exactly what we're saying.
Just to
Yeah.
clarify.
Commercial, but not zone farm, zone as agricultural,
But
because,
utilize the zone areas that are already zoned for commercial and to build that out.
yeah, and also consider some of the things that are zoned agricultural.
Absolutely
Those
consider
over
that,
to
but that's what the
commercial.
Ag Commission would help do. They'll help
So,
understand
just
that.
so we
I'm
understand.
not convinced that it would. I think that it would be, it'd be lobbying for more, either more or this, at least no diminution of the existing amount of.
I just found in the POCD that Jim had mentioned, the Public Act 490, because I was wondering, I'm glad you brought up the POCD about open space, and I just wanted to read this because it helped me understand the open space that is designed as, is designated as forest, pasture, or farmland under Public Act 490. The land is subject to tax incentives, which was mentioned, that prohibit new development, but the landowner may elect to repeal the designation and allow for development. So there is an opportunity to
The landowner.
that the landowner can elect to designate for allowing for development, again, subject to zoning,
Right.
but it does give some flexibility in there to do both at least. So again, I think it's a great debate. I think it's a debate that goes on throughout town, but we do, in the interest of time, need to keep moving our agenda along. Before we get off of the farm discussion, I did want to ask Sadie for an update on the farm guide and ED role in editing, surveying, distributing the guide. What specifically is that?
So I included in your packets of information, so the town has some interns who have been working on putting together a survey to send out to all the farms to kind of collect information that we.
Oh, is that the inventory we've been looking at? No, that's a different piece.
Yeah, it's this kind of Woodbridge
Oh, sorry.
farm survey.
Oh, there it is.
And basically the end goal with this is to create kind of a guide of all the different farms, farm stands in town. You can see that there's an example from North Branford also included. something along those lines. And Sheila just wanted me to see if you all had any feedback on the survey, if there should be any other questions asked that could be valuable, and then just to, ask you, once we put the farm guide together, if you would just help disseminate it to, residents, businesses.
I'm just confused. What are we missing that's not, like, we already have the inventory. So what is the, maybe you guys can help. What's the point of the farm survey? What more information do we get that's not already in the inventory?
Well, I didn't know that this inventory
Oh,
existed.
okay, gotcha, okay.
I'm not sure if this has been given to the interns who are working on this survey.
So maybe we're.
Yeah, maybe that's
bridging-
something that we need to,
Bridging a gap here.
yeah.
Okay.
It might be helpful to ask what kind of, how much business they're doing, both in produce, and try to just throw together like what the revenues would be. Also, ask questions about capital intensity, like how much they have to expect to have to do in ongoing investment to keep it in a steady state, or to get it to a steady state where it's 100% production or whatever they want it to be.
Is that future goals, or is that?
Just to ask them if they're assuming that they're in business to be a farm, and and what are they fully, are they using all the acreage they have, or they're not using all the acreage? Are they planning to ramp it up, or are they planning to ramp it down? And talk about what their capital needs are, talk about, maybe they could share like how much cash flow they're throwing off after they've done all their investment and done all their expenses, how much excess cash generation they're
Do
generating.
you think people will share that information? Wouldn't it be privileged or confidential?
Private.
It'd be like me asking you what you make in your,
How about just, how many people do you employ, maybe? Something like that.
just a question, just
But,
curious.
well,
I don't know, it just,
I was following up more on wondering if we can get the information you're
It'd
looking
be nice
for
information to have.
in terms of capital needs that potential grants could help suffice, maybe. I don't know if there's.
Valid question.
Yeah, I don't know. if
I mean,
there's-
that's something, would a grants, help you enhance your farm or something like that? That's a very valid point.
Or even the question, if we're
to
looking for information, to say, have you utilized a state grant, and,
Yeah.
what grant?
I was thinking about the vineyard, the
Provides us with
fencing you were
information.
talking about.
I mean, it'd be helpful to know whether they are, whether they're stuck or not. If they want to invest, but if they even know what the number is that they need to invest to increase the number of.
Well, and do we know
acres
all
they're
the
using.
stories, like, we know about the Shepherd Farm, but are there other farms in town that we might not know of the potential opportunities for either? You guys are obviously well tapped in, but maybe there's something that we don't know that we can gain from this survey. We can find out that there's a need out there that we're not aware of. I think that's sort of what we're driving at here.
Is it out of line to ask them what percentage of their income or whatever is from the farm? In other words, are they committed farmers, or is it a hobby? Where,
Or is it some
5%
sort of
what they're
tax,
doing?
tax shield?
I don't think that's too private, but it at least gives you some sense of the commitment level of that
Do we
particular
know,
farm.
it was brought up at the last meeting, I think you mentioned about, Brooks mentioned about taxing and taxation. If a farm is taxed differently than a residential home, and
And people play games with that.
right, and then that's not our intention, or I don't think anyone's intention, that we want people to just say, all right, I have 3 chickens and now my house is a farm. But are there any tax implications to having a piece of your property that you actually have, are farming or anything like that?
The town has a requirement that a farm be at least 5 acres. The state has no requirement, because it understands that intensive farming can be done on an acre. But if there's a residential house on that acre, it's not considered to be necessarily a farm. That house will not be excluded from its assessment.
And is maple syrup, how is that determined? Because I know a neighbor of mine, produces maple syrup, sells it at the farm market. Some of it comes from Woodbridge, some of it comes from Orange. Is that farmland, or, I mean, I know you can plant Christmas trees, for example, on farmland, but how is that maple syrup identified or distinguished as farm or not?
It's a farm product.
But the land, is that farmland?
If the maple tree's being tapped or on a residential lot, that residential lot is still being taxed for its assessment on it. There's no change.
Okay. But you can obviously tap it and sell it, but it's not a farm per se. Okay, I was just curious, because, any other quick comments? Thank you, I think it was a great discussion, a very important discussion.
Really appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
We officially cannot take action.
We cannot take action at this point individually. Obviously, we can express our views to the ordinance commission, but we do not have a quorum, so we cannot make any motions.
So now we're in support of an ag commission.
And so, say
Yes,
this, take that
I would like to go on record supporting an agricultural commission.
Again, that's why I mentioned the timeline, because I was afraid that if we had this discussion and we were short, we wouldn't have a quorum and we couldn't take action, which unfortunately is what happened. But to Mika's point, we don't necessarily need to do that. We will be meeting again. Well, we do have a July meeting. I'm not imagining, again, we're going to have a quorum, so that brings us to September, where hopefully we can have a meeting, have a quorum, and take action as potentially recommended by the board.
I expect the ordinance will have ruled by then,
Okay.
September, but I don't expect them this is the first time this is on the agenda for ordinance, so I don't expect anything to come out of, I could be surprised, but I don't expect anything to come out of June. And just so you know, the same was requested for the Conservation Commission. There's a Conservation Commission, I believe, commission meeting, I believe, on the 21st, that I believe they will also be attending, and I will be attending to get input from the Conservation Commission as to what their feeling is as relates to an agricultural.
But again, you're not precluded, to make public test. Is there going to be public format?
There usually is a Conservation Commission.
But that's the ordinance.
No, there won't be public. Public's invited, obviously, but I don't. Last the agenda I saw, there was not a public, public speaking.
Forum?
Correct.
Those minutes are published, though, so we can go and grab it.
Yes.
and post
Yes.
and
All
stuff.
the minutes are. Yes. Published on the ordinance.
But you allow, is there any opportunity for the public to submit just to the commission?
Always. So they
Or
go through. They go
not.
through the. They go through the First Selectman's office to do so.
Right, because
and
it'll
we have, in the past, there's never been, or there hasn't ordinarily been, public session for ordinance. We started it a few meetings ago. And we don't do it consistently only because of timing involved. Because it's,
But a new commission would have to be authorized by the selectmen at large.
everything has to go through, it has to be voted on, the whole.
And at that point, there's
Ordinance just puts it forth to the Board of Selectmen for approval.
But do you
and
think
for
that would
town
happen
meeting.
by September?
I know we have to give like 30 days notice for the town meeting, so if this were not to happen in the June, let's say it were to happen in July ordinance, it would probably happen after the selectmen meeting, which means it would be, the selectmen would then present it at the August meeting with 30 days notice, so it probably would be in this kind of timeframe that it could potentially happen.
So there still may be, if this body so chooses to make an official motion, there still may be.
I got to tell you, the discussion is very valuable just from my perspective in terms of trying to learn as much as possible, so I appreciate the information that you're offering, and it's exactly what we're looking for in terms of input.
Okay, discussion, email communication with businesses.
So Sheila and Betsy have been working on kind of revamping the newsletter that we're sending to businesses. So they just wanted to get your input in terms of, what do you think for frequency, the types of stories that we should
Much
be
improved, but
including.
needs greater frequency.
Okay.
I mean, we used to have regular frequency. I like the new look of it, but I think we need more of it. Hampton sends theirs out. It seems like a couple times a month I'm getting stuff from Hampton. Now, granted, Hampton's a much larger community, but there is messaging that needs to get out there to our business community, and I think we can do more to keep them in the loop. That's my opinion.
Can there be a tag on there for folks to know that they can come to EDC for, their questions or to present or to join us at the beginning of our meeting?
Just the information out of this meeting alone can fill a newsletter 2 or 3.
Sure.
And we continue to have information out of the meetings with our guest speakers, with our discussions, and the information on the farms, and there's a lot of information we can get out there. And the amount of links, sending out stuff on the farms and then sending links out on this, sending out, links on SCORE, any of the stuff we've talked about today.
Well, another thing that, I was going to bring it up when we talked about the commercial real estate, which I don't have a lot of updates for, but.
We're not there yet.
But something I was going to mention, in one of our meetings in our office, and then through talking to some of the other realtors from other local Woodbridge and then some from other neighboring towns, is there some sort of connection between the commercial real estate brokers, agents, companies with the business community in general, or those looking to get into or come into our community? Meaning, I think I brought it up before, if someone calls into town and says they're interested in opening up a business in this town, where do those calls get directed? Who does it go from and to, and how does that process sort of begin? It would sort of make sense that it would be sent to some sort of a real estate company, or just directed to a place where someone would find more about what's available in the town. So, for instance, CERC. Is there a CERC real estate CERC site finder place on our website where it's just specifically Woodbridge?
So we actually offer, it's called the local edition. The town could purchase it. I'm not sure how much it is, but it would be exclusively Woodbridge properties. You can code it into the site so it's it's on the site, just Woodbridge properties. That's just an example. But sometimes it's just as simple as the first selectman's office has a spreadsheet of the full inventory of commercial industrial properties. It's however you all want to do it. But
I just think it's a valuable
Right.
resource for even your home businesses that we're really trying to focus on and target and try to get those home. It seems to me that most of the business owners in our town are also residents. A lot of them, a majority, I would say, and that means that the next potential business owner that's occupying commercial real estate in our town is probably coming from their home, or is probably coming from out of state who wants to buy a home here and open their business down the road because they want to be close to their kids' school or whatever it may be. I just think that it would be a huge value to those people if there was some sort of a central way for them to find out a whole list of all the commercial real estate agents, or a list of all the spaces or potential buildings. And I know that it's just a matter of putting it all together, but how can we get it out there once it's put together?
See, it sounded like when Katie was telling her story that she started with a real estate agent.
A residential real
A
estate
residential, and then when she, yeah, right, not even a commercial. And that she only had contact with the town when it came time to think about the sprinklers issue.
Right.
And then the fire guy comes in, and then from there it goes, and that's how I guess the town found out she was even interested.
Right.
I don't know if there's a way that maybe the commercial real estate agencies that do business around here, maybe they could populate some of that information.
Sure, it's where will it be centrally populated, I think, is more of the question. I think if we had a place, a simple reach out, there's not a lot of the brokerages around here, to reach out to them and say, provide us with your listings, we're going to put them out for people to see. I think it's a no-brainer. I don't think any real estate company, no, I don't want everyone to see my listing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's a matter of where can we populate it and who's going to populate it, and then it's just a matter of a place.
There's a few things I think we need to put on the next agenda. One, the website, the economic development page on the website is never been updated to include those initial links. The CERC link used to be there. Some of those resources used to be there. If we want to invest in the CERC thing, I think that's something we need to start looking at for the fall agenda for budgetary items. Is that something that we actually put into our EDC budget and say, yes, we through EDC want to support this, and you guys give us a budgetary number so at least we know what it is, and then we can know we're doing it. And then I think we should also think about some sort of outreach from EDC, maybe Mika could help with this, to department heads and their chief staff member, be it a secretary. You know, I'm thinking again of the fire department to say, we're gonna call fire chief, I'll call fire marshal, but, you know, we really should be Amy over there who should have the information to know that there is a business guide. She probably has no idea that we're even doing this sort of stuff. And we just found out that they're actually fielding calls from startup businesses, and what are they doing with that information? And have some sort of communication from EDC to, because, you know, Public Works might get a call. I don't know who's gonna get a call, and, you know, I'm starting a business, well, what are they gonna do with that? But if we said, you know, not just to the business community, but to the folks within town government to know what to do with these people. Because I don't think she probably called the selectman's office and said, oh, by the way, somebody's starting a new business, did you know this, blah, blah, blah. Because she just doesn't know that. I'm just using that as the example that came up here.
Right.
But if we through EDC put that communication out saying, you know, department heads and your chief staff people who are answering phones, you know, this is what you should do if you get a call from somebody starting a new business, you know, get their information, send it to the first selectman's office, send it to EDC, so EDC's aware of it, you know, some sort of internal communication to help improve this.
And theoretically, through this, the guide that we're working on, we're going to be passing this around to all the different groups that are, you know, that are part of this process. So they all should become aware of it through that, but, you know, obviously, once we finalize the document, that's gonna be something that we will then pass around to all of them. So
So I
that
assume
they're aware.
there's staff meetings and maybe something the selectman's office could bring up at a staff meeting and remind people about this.
I remember a while back, like maybe many months ago, in the fall, we discussed, does the town have a database of available commercial properties? And, I mean, this sounds a lot very similar to this. It's just a database of commercial properties that are available now for rent, or for lease,
Well,
rather.
that's what the CERC does.
But it would just be nice to, if that was easily available, and we would even have it list characteristics of the property, like how much square footage and all that kind of thing.
Probably on the grand list, I guess, the commercial
Yeah.
grand list it would be on, wouldn't it? Just
I mean,
every
yeah,
single commercial
Yeah.
property in town.
Yeah, the CERC Site Finder Local Edition.
And some of it's actually being used, some of it might not be used at all, and not even available for lease, but is
Just commercial.
yeah, it just happens to be zoned commercial but not being used.
Shouldn't you identify specifically where you want this information to go, so that the notification that goes out to people is very specific in telling where they should go? Has that decision been made, and are you comfortable? Like you were saying, there's improvements that need to be made to the website.
Once this guide is ready, that's I'm sorry, Mika, you weren't here from the beginning of the discussion here.
Did you start
So-
at 7?
Hmm?
Did you start 7?
Yes, 7.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, we talked about that earlier. This here, this
Thank you.
document here,
I think
I didn't know if you got one or not, but that's what we talked about in the beginning of the meeting, which is our business resource guide. And so that would be that's the first draft. We've already, you know, put some comments into Sadie. It's going to be reviewed from the selectman's office. So that's the guide we were referring to.
Mhm.
That would be disseminated to new businesses, but I'm saying that's what also should go internally to staff within town government. So they're also aware of the process. And also to know that if somebody in town government's on the list, they obviously need to know that they'll be getting the call.
Right. But is this specifically we're on the website?
It's not- yeah, on the-
That's,
Yeah,
okay.
We're not there yet.
It has a long way to go, but yeah, it will be on the website.
Why a long way, Sadie?
It's,
Curiosity.
we're still waiting on all the feedback from the town. It's very rough. There's still a lot that needs to be added in, more detail.
No, not so much in terms of all the detail as far as the document is concerned, but in terms of identifying where it will be when it happens, I guess.
Oh, no, it'll
That's
definitely
also-
go on the website. Oh, yeah, and we should distribute it to the businesses through the email newsletter that we're sending out, you know, get it out to everyone as much as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Another thing, even just this press release that I found on the construction should go in one of those business newsletters.
Sure, yeah, well, yeah, that's a good topic now that I just got that information. We'll send out the schedule and the DOT
And maybe,
contact.
is it appropriate that whenever we think of something, we email that to you? Do
Sure.
we send it to Sheila?
That's fine, I
Okay.
can congregate all that
Okay.
information.
Okay, upcoming events. Oh, I'm sorry, Economic Development Council at the Chamber.
Oh, yes. So I spoke with Garrett Sheehan, who's the president of the Greater New Haven Chamber, and he said the Economic Development Council is non-exclusive, so anyone can go. And he just told me to let him know who wants to be added to that email list so you can get information if you want to go, so. Does
I
everyone-
met with Garrett about 2 weeks ago,
Okay.
so I'm going to that.
Okay.
I'm already on the list, so and I know Jeremy had expressed interest.
Yeah, I'm on the list. It's the same exact third Wednesday of the month that I have my commercial industrial division sort of networking group, so it's sort of tough for me to go to both, but
So I'm on that list, so I'll,
Okay.
you know,
Does anyone else want to be added to it?
upcoming,
I'll give you the correct email address.
Okay,
upcoming events, is that Sadie?
yes.
Okay.
A few things, next Wednesday, UI will be hosting an event for the Economic Development Community in Connecticut at the Travelers Tournament. I think it's a breakfast event. I'm sure you'll be able to find it on their website. There's a event on the 28th of June for Meriden, in Meriden downtown, focusing on entrepreneurs and, a panel on entrepreneurs that, they might be able to offer some valuable information for the businesses in town. And finally, there will be a CEDIS Academy webinar on the reurbanization of manufacturing on July 26th.
I know I can't get to the 20th event, I got some invites to that. That looked like actually a really good event,
Yeah, it's very well attended and they
I
have,
imagine.
yeah.
I'm in DC that day, unfortunately. Jeremy, you're up.
I don't have a lot of updates, I gotta tell you, in commercial real estate in town. It seems like there's, I haven't seen any spaces that have necessarily gotten filled since the last meeting that I'm aware of. Nor anyone per se that I know that is vacating. The one thing I wanted to say is that because of that reason, there seems to be a bit of stagnancy, I guess, in town. There doesn't seem to be a lot of new businesses coming in.
There's a few spaces open in the mall, over by the Stop and Shop and the,
That's New Haven.
oh, of course. Sorry. No, I'm there so much, yeah, I know, yeah.
But I mean, even like, the property behind the Starbucks property has, a number of vacancies. 245 has,
What's the problem with that piece?
That's
Is it traffic, is it cost?
Great question, great question.
I don't quite know. I know that there's a land lease. I think Parati owns the land. So the acre group leased the land from them and put that building up
I
there.
always hear that, but why is that a problem?
I don't know why it's a problem, to be honest with you.
I was just curious.
I haven't had anything to do with or I haven't had much of a relationship with the folks who have been managing the property and doing the leasing on it. I don't know what the problem would be, to be quite honest with you. You would think that it'd be a good place. The Yarn Barn's been there for how many years, and they do quite well. I mean, I know the school's there. I don't know what the situation was with the Claydate folks and why they moved over to the other space. But you would think that there's a variety of sort of high visibility retail spaces that are available in town that aren't huge, so it seems like it'd be a good space for a small business to come in and give it a good go. And that's sort of why I brought up this whole thing as a realtor. It's, we advertise where, the same places that every other town and every other realtor all over the state advertise. What can we as realtors and the town, how can we work together to try to bring more people into our town and try to drive new businesses to these spaces, or existing businesses that want to branch into a town as a.
Well, I think, I really, I'm not cutting you off, but it is
No,
9
it's
o'clock,
more
but
discussion.
I really think we should have a discussion at the September meeting on this, bring Jim back, because he's looked at a lot of this property, bring some of the other folks, who's the, one of the other developers I was just thinking of, you know, include one or two of the developers from that area. Who else is down there? So, guy across the street, I'm thinking.
Oh,
Schaefer.
Bruce
You know,
Schaefer.
have, not to exclude anybody else, but Bruce and Jim both live here, they're invested here, they know where the properties are. Maybe we just invite the two of them, if there's anybody else we think of, but we don't want to overwhelm, but have them as part of the discussion and really start.
Or a brainstorming session.
Exactly,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't know,
That's a
see
good idea.
if that's
It's a great
something
idea.
that we can, you know, think about for September, if Jody's on board with that, you know, and then we can really spend some time talking about
I mean,
this.
I think there's got to be
Put the map
probably-
right up here, the town, and identify some of these.
I think there's got to be 30,000 plus square feet of office space, let alone the retail space available in town, and I think that we shouldn't have that kind of vacancy right now. I think that there's a lot that the town could offer, and I think that the developers would be happy to see us starting to bring that into our meetings and talking about that kind of stuff, so I'm for it.
Whatever input we can receive as to why it's not happening is.
Right.
Brooks, to your point, you know, what is our potential? We still don't know what our potential is. You know, we look at that 14 acres, everybody keeps talking about the 14 acres on Bradley, but, you know, to Jim's point, there's that large piece up there that nobody ever talks about. What is the potential? If we don't talk about it, we don't know what the potential is for that piece, and what other pieces are there. I mean, we know Jim was looking at that little piece on Hazel, you know, he knows where all these little nuggets are. You know, what can we do with this? You know,
Yeah.
the piece behind me, that 5 acres, you know, that's a nice big piece of land
Right.
that, you know, somebody could do a lot of potential development there. It's got one 20,000 square foot building, you could put a lot more in that piece, and that's a potential large tax base for us there if we can develop that piece.
Yeah, that's like what Jim was saying, like the whole village could be just in that area. I mean, between where my old office and your space, that
Okay.
whole, you know, revitalize the whole.
Okay.
Okay, business visitation workshop special meeting, we were gonna do a doodle on that, we just didn't come
Yeah,
up with
we
a date, I
didn't,
think.
it wasn't, we didn't get a lot of dates that
You know-
everybody could attend.
I'll just say, I think this discussion, this more open brainstorming session is more important than that. I mean, we need to do that, maybe we do another doodle, but, I mean, we keep talking about this, why don't we just have this bigger discussion and focus on that?
I don't know if there's another more important item that needs to be discussed other than.
I mean, that could be, if Jody's on board, the focus of our September meeting is really, yeah.
I agree.
I mean, we don't give up on the visitation workshop thing, but let's focus on this,
Sure.
what are we gonna call it? You know, it's really identifying the potential in the business district. Reusable banner, it's something you guys are gonna work on.
So, yeah, I have a little bit of an update on that. So the EDC budget is being used for CERC services, and they're not really sure if there's going to be anything left. But they said, Sheila told me that they could print for free like an A-frame sign, like a 2 by 3 foot sign, and laminate it, and that could be something that you use at least for now.
We have one banner from a couple of years ago that I had made. It's just a roll-out banner that has the EDC information. I can bring it into town, and I just don't know if there's data on it, because I don't know if it was a Facebook page or website on it. I can't remember. We used it a couple of years ago at when we had our meeting there, and I still have it, so.
Awesome.
And I donated that, so.
Oh, there we go.
That's not a problem.
So, but I don't know if the data, because it might not be the website, it might be the Facebook page, which apparently we're not using as we should, so. Either I'll bring it by and we'll figure it out.
So I'll just hold off on the A-frame for now, and we'll see what the banner looks like.
And it says discussion of by meeting, so that's what we're talking about.
So just, what is the date for that? Because I don't know if there was.
Oh,
a
whatever
date.
is on, yeah, it's on the calendar. We have
Oh, okay,
yeah.
you have one set.
I thought, I mean, gosh, I'll have to go back to my, I didn't bring it with me because I saw next meeting TBD, but
I just want to point out, the first time I had a meeting was the July meeting, and it was so loud that it was really hard to have any kind of, I question whether the July meeting is even that helpful, given how difficult it is to have a conversation.
Look, I can't speak to last year, but the year before, we used that as an opportunity to just kind of network,
Yeah.
and just walk around and, talk about what we are, and actually, because there's a number of vendors there, food vendors, and, just with Woodbridge Rec was there, I think, the same night, and we just used it as kind of a networking opportunity, so, yeah, it wasn't a standard, agenda meeting night, but.
Right, no, but
I mean, I thought it was
Right, the
valuable.
thing is that the town won't allow us to gather unless we post it. So we
Okay.
can't even go there and do that without posting it officially, because if there's a gathering of more than 2 or 3 people talking about EDC and it's not posted, then we go, yeah, then it's a.
it's a FOIA issue.
Exactly, so that's why we're doing, it's not a formal, we're not gonna do, we're not gonna approve minutes, but we will note that for FOI purposes, that we are there, we are gathering what we've done, minutes will be recorded, but
Right.
I don't think we're gonna be in a position where we're gonna take any action. That's not the point of the meeting, but it's to meet the.
So in order to network, you gotta have the.
Exactly,
Yeah, I
right.
think we were handing out Palooza cards.
Yeah.
I mean, we were doing little things like
Right.
that, so.
Yeah, so anytime when we do like one of the business after hours, it's posted, it's
Right, right.
public knowledge and all that,
Are
so.
we gonna have anything to be able to hand out? I don't know if I missed this, but anything that we can give out to the public when we're at this?
I think
Yeah.
this sort of stuff, if anybody's interested to have a dozen copies of the SBA thing, have the Connecticut business guides there. I mean, at least if somebody's interested, we have something. If we're there for EDC, that doing business in Connecticut 2018, if we can get a dozen copies of that, then at least, so we don't have something at Woodbridge, we don't have that, but at least we have something to give people.
Sure. That's fine.
I don't know, you guys might have more resources too.
Yeah, I could look into the types of resources we use.
So the date for the July meeting?
I don't know, I thought.
I'll look tomorrow and I'll let you know if something has been set, and if not, then.
We set the
that's-
calendar last December, I thought, or November.
But oddly, no, it's like the BO, the Board of Selectmen meeting is the 11th. Usually your meeting is the day after.
Well, no, it's gonna be on a Tuesday because it's in conjunction with the
Because I
concerts.
don't see
Tuesday or
that- I don't see
Tuesday
that
or
on any of
Wednesday.
the-
Whatever day the concerts
I
are.
don't see it on any of the days of the concert. Maybe I just didn't put it in.
And so there was a printed document that we
No,
had,
it says
and
31st.
we agreed to not have an August meeting, and we said we would do the July meeting.
Yeah, the 31st, as the 31st, that's fine.
Oh, then,
I
okay.
believe it's
Oh.
31st.
Thank you.
So there you go, it's the 31st.
July 31st, I just found it.
31st.
Okay. Thank you, Pua.
You bet.
Public comment.
You,
Oh, sorry.
just, you also want to.
It is my
give an
anniversary, by the way,
update.
so my wife will
You know, happy days.
You too?
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Gotta get that on public record.
You wanted me to give an update on the municipal fiscal health analysis that we're doing, the research team is doing.
Yes.
So Alyssa DeJean, who's our chief economist at CERC, presented last night for the Board of Selectmen. And basically, so far what's happened is that they did background research to determine comparison towns. So basically, they're going to be comparing Woodbridge's fiscal components to different towns in the region. So the comparison towns that they came up with are Bethany, Middlebury, Beacon Falls, Essex, Madison, Marlborough, Old Lyme, Reading, and Sherman. And they did that by evaluating a variety of demographic and fiscal indicators. And so that's kind of as far as they've gotten, and now they'll be doing the actual analysis comparing all the towns.
So by September, you think we can get this on the agenda we can,
Yeah, I'll add that to the
that
agenda.
would be
I mean,
great.
even if it's
because,
not completed,
again,
I don't
this
know
is
what
the other
the
thing
schedule is
we
for
keep
it.
talking about, what towns do we compare? So that's why we brought you guys in. We brought the experts in to say, what are comparable towns? Who should we be looking at? We can't compare ourselves to Westport as much as we want to be, or Guilford. It's not practical, but people do it. Now we have, the realistic data. And if we have, if it's not September, then October, whenever you guys have the
Sure.
report ready, I think that would be great to put on the EDC agenda. Awesome. If nothing else, we will adjourn because We can. We don't need a motion to adjourn. We can't take a motion.
That's right.
I'll make a motion.
It was a very good informational meeting. Thank you, everyone.